Greetings and welcome to another 1615 webinar. I'm Matthew Ellison. I serve at 1615 as president, and also I serve the organization as a church missions coach. And we are just delighted that you're with us today. I've seen some of the content for today's talk, and boy, it's going to be a great one. Now, before we begin today's webinar, I want to let you know about some resources as well as some upcoming events at 1615. There's my email address. If you want to contact me, please feel free to do that. And our director of mobilization and operations, David Jackett, is also with us today. And so I've got his email there as well. And he'll be coming on at the end to be a part of the question and answer session as well. So there's a couple of books I want to recommend. The first is When Everything is Missions, and the second is Conversations on When Everything is Missions. And both of these books were written to address this idea that every follower of Christ is a missionary, and every good evangelistic, altruistic work done in Jesus' name is a missions work. And we ask the questions, are these biblical concepts? Are they helpful? Do they lead to more missions work being accomplished or less? In the second book, 15 other voices are added to the conversation. You'll recognize some of the names: David Platt, J.D. Payne, Ed Stetzer, and many others. You can pick them up at wheneverythingismissions.com, and I think they're provocative in a very good way, moving God's people to think. There is a book bundle where you can buy both at a discount, or you could purchase them individually. We also have a podcast by the same name, When Everything is Missions, and you know how to get your podcast. So wherever you find your, wherever you get your podcast content, just visit there and you can subscribe. This particular season, we're interviewing the guest authors from the Conversations on When Everything is Missions book. So I highly recommend that you take a listen to those podcasts. We also have a resource called the Mission Table. This was launched a few years ago. And what we do is we gather leading missions thinkers and practitioners, and we gather around the table and we address critical and controversial topics impacting missions today. Seasons 1 through 3 are available to watch online, and not too long from now, we'll be rolling out some more episodes. But please take advantage of this very powerful resource. I want to remind you that today's webinar is being recorded and will be archived within the week. We've been doing these since 2011, and we have an array of Great Commission topics that are available on our website, 1615.org/webinars, or just click on resources and you can navigate to our archived webinars. So a variety of topics for you to look at. It's great for churches, mission agencies, and we feature noted speakers as well as many of our valued partners. So please take advantage of this free resource. We also have another podcast that is relatively new. It's called the Mission Matters podcast, and that's a double entendre if you didn't notice. The mission matters. There's nothing more important than the mission of Jesus Christ. But on this podcast, we also talk about the matters of our mission. It's available on 10 podcast platforms. For a full list, just visit the website right there again, or just go wherever you watch or listen to your podcast. They're also available on YouTube. The Mobilized Church Workshop is a resource we are incredibly excited about. It is available as a 2-day live experience, a 2-day virtual experience, or an 8-week virtual experience. The 8-week experience you see down below there, registration is closed for that one. But if you are not too far from Dallas, and being that it's centrally located, it's easy to get to, you can fly in as well. This is a 2-day live regional workshop. You can also find out more about our virtual experiences at 1615.org. The whole purpose of this workshop is to really talk about what does a mobilized church look like, and how do we foster an atmosphere of learning and discovery in these workshops that will lead to mobilization at the local church level. So we hope that you will take advantage of this resource as well. And finally, I want to let you know about our peer-to-peer gatherings. These are designed for church missions leaders. We started these last year, and we've continued to do them. They're the first Wednesday of every month, and we identify, again, leading missions thinkers, and we have them present to church missions leaders. On June 2nd, we'll be joined by J.D. Payne of Samford University. Man, I'm looking forward to this one. He's going to talk about apostolic imagination, something we desperately need today, and how do we recover a biblical vision for the church's mission today. And then on July 7th, also a really great one, we'll be talking about best practices in missionary care with David Wilson of Avant and also Lori Rogers of Momentum. Yes, you can register for the peer-to-peer gatherings at 1615.org/events, or just go to 1615.org and click on the events tab. Oh, also forgot about this one. Today's webinar, Mobilizing People of Color, is a continuation in a series about mobilizing different ethnicities. How do we work together to mobilize the whole body of Christ to be a part of the whole mission of God? And on May 27th, this will be part 2 of mobilizing African Americans. We'll be joined by NAMAC. The director of NAMAC will be joining us, Adrian Reeves, and we'll be building on the previous workshop we did on this topic here. Looks like I spoke too soon. I've got a couple more here. Here's some upcoming webinars: rebooting short-term missions with standards of excellence. Obviously very relevant today in a post-COVID world. How do we reboot short-term missions? And then July 8th, we'll be joined by Pioneers. We're going to talk about how do we reintegrate missions into our identity as disciples. And then, of course, the MISSIO Nexus conference is coming up. If you've not registered for that, 1615 will be there. We're a part of a mobilization track. We'll also be hosting a church missions leaders luncheon. But if you haven't looked into that, please do. It's really a great gathering where people of like-mindedness come together to think about the mission of God together. Okay, David, I'm going to ask you to turn your webcam on here, and I'm going to just give a few final announcements before we get started here. Let me unmute you. Folks, let me just let you know that today's webinar, again entitled Mobilizing People of Color, focusing on the Latino American Church. And as you can see, we are joined by David Ruiz. He's the Director of Global Engagement with Avant. Avant is a longtime partner of 1615, and we're just so thankful for that relationship. Just a few final things here, and I'm going to hand it over to David. Your phones are muted to preserve sound quality, so you can listen in on your computer speakers, or you can call in on the telephone. Now, as questions come to mind today, and we hope they do, we want you to type them in the question and answer panel on the right-hand side of your screen, because the last 15 or 20 minutes of our time together will be your opportunity to enter into the conversation with David. And again, I've seen the content. It is really rich. I'm looking forward to hearing the whole presentation today. 107 people are registered for today's webinar. Also, I want to remind you that this is being recorded, so you can share it with friends and partners in ministry after today. It'll be available in about a week. So David, I'm going to hand controls over to you. I want to thank you for being here today, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So David, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Matthew. I really appreciate this opportunity. I am value very much about to connect with this great and incredible network of people that you are connecting and providing, and most of them are most of the time provoking new thinking in mission. And I am really appreciate this opportunity. We are going to talk something about mobilizing the Latin American church. And I think that you have to realize with me that the world where we are doing mission today is becoming complex and complicated. And in the last 50 years, most of the premises that granted us for our process of mobilize, recruit, train, and deploy missionaries proved to be inadequate for the challenges that we are facing as church, as a global mission today. But the events of the last year of pandemic transform all the process in a real mess. What we are looking is that the process of mobilizing need to be updated, and especially because in the process or in the interest to accelerate the traditional way of sending missionaries, we end up with an equation of sending mission that has been modified in the last decades in a very simplistic way. And we think that if we as leader, we mobilize, train individuals, we will have an increase in the number of missionaries. The reality is exactly the opposite, because what we are looking is how the number of missionaries, particularly in the Western world, is decreasing radically, but the opportunities and the new ways of sending missionaries is increasingly very rapidly as well. So what are the challenges that the church is facing today? What is this new complex and complicated world when we have to mobilize, when we have to think about to work together and join hands and how to make advance the global evangelization? First of all, we are living in a new era, the multi-centric mission era, when every region in the world is both recipient and sender of missionaries. So as we can say, mission is no longer unidirectional at all. Secondly, that Christianity is the most globalized, geographical, dispersed, and cultural diverse religion. So when we can see both of those elements, we can realize that it's not as easy to make a plan to how to send missionaries, but we also need to start planning how to receive missionaries and how to cooperate not only with the church that already existed there, but with the missionaries who are coming when our church is already functioning. Generosity for mission and missionaries and mission project is in rapid declination today, and that is a big problem, especially for the mobilization process. But we are experiencing a longer time of waiting of the missionaries between they are training and ready and be deployed, because the process to raise support is becoming very, very complicated and longer today. And we need to continue trying to invent new ways to approach and new ways to raise those monies. So Global North also is provoking a confusion about what is mission and what is missionary, as well as an increase of individual and personal project in detriment of the church mission project. And I think that we are put a trap against our, so we can see that, especially because the growing of the so-called short-term mission that is provoking a confusion, not only in the countries that are sending those groups of short-term missionaries, but also in the places when they are came with the name of missionaries to doing a missionary project that changed the identity of what we call mission and missionaries and what we call missions project. The evangelical church has lost its desire to help people to come to faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, happily with just social and doing good things. And I think it made me remember the final conclusion of the consultation or the global convention in April 1900 in New York, when they end up with the same conclusion. The Church of Jesus Christ is not interested that the Lord know the gospel of Jesus Christ. We are perpetuating the idea to think in ourselves instead of think in those who are lost and have no opportunities. So David Smith wrote this in the book Mission After Christendom, that I think it's a very good conclusion or a very summary of what I'm trying to communicate in those previous slides. What is clear by now is that both the concept of mission as one-way movement from Christendom to unevangelized world and the structural devices at the close of the 18th century to facilitate that movement having overtaken, but historical development that rendered them increasingly irrelevant and redundant. So we need to rethink, we need to think in a new ways to recover what is the way in which we have to do mission. So let me show some of those changes in graph particular. And the first one is the church map is changing. And what we realize in this process is that, first of all, that the church in the global south has one history of a strong influence in global Christianity, imprinted in reality on global mission and in the way that the church acts. During the period of the early church prior to Christendom, the Christian message was spread from the periphery of the Roman Empire to the center and the very heart of them. So after almost 1,000 years, the church is coming back to the south. And now we are living again that time when the church is not North Atlantic but anymore, but is in the global south. According to Paul Johnson in 1981, the Christianity in the global south recovered the position as the larger segment of the church, and as it was in the last in the previous in the first 900 years of the history of the Christendom. And when we read what Andrew Wall said, reflecting in the 500 years of Christian mission, he said, what is already certain is that the Christianity is now predominant non-Western religion, the profession principally of African, Asian, and Latin American people, and it's currently moving progressively in that direction. So the map of the church is changing, but also the geography of the church is also changing. So when we see that elements, we realize that the geographical change of global Christianity is probably the most important and the first and most important change that we are facing. And starting in 1981, the direction of the course in our statistic graph are changing radically. We are witnessing how the numbers of Christians in the global north, that include Europe and United States, is declining very fast. And at the same time, the numbers of Christians in the global south, including Africa, Asia, and Latin America, is growing in a very explosive way. As we can see in the Atlas of Global Christianity, by 1900, the numbers of Christians in the global north were 82%, and only 18% live in the global south. By today, the number changed radically. 33% of them live in the global north and only 67% in the global south. But if we only compare the segment of evangelical, the change is even more brutal, because in 1900, 92% of the evangelicals live in the global north and only 8% in the global south. But now the ratio is 23% in the global north and 77% in the global south. When we see that that graph that shows the way in which the center of gravity of the church is moving around the map, we can start imagining the different milestone in the history of the church. The resurrection and Pentecost is the moment when the church really emerged. And we see how the center of gravity start coming in a very equilibrated things until the Nicaea Council, when it was defined the church as a global church, a universal church. But then by around the year 700, with the emergence of Islam, the church start moving north and moving to the west. But then when we saw the fall of Constantinople, it was a very important moment, because we lost the history of the Eastern Christianity. And in that very moment, the Christianity, the Christendom, start defining as the most Western religion. But then with the comment of the Reformation, and especially with the discovering of America that came almost in the same time, and an incredible growth of the Church of Christianity start, and especially influenced by the new vitality ignited in the Reformation era, but also for the opportunities of the new discovering territory. But 1900, we start observing the declining of the church in the global north, influenced by various factors, between of them, in most of them in Europe. And then we see the incredible growth of the church in the global south, that in this very moment put the center of gravity of the church close of the famous Timbuktu. So when we continue reflecting about, a new topology of the church is also growing, because the missionary force is now emerged and growing from the regions in the global south. As Jason Mandic also said, the explosive growth of majority world churches, so inspiring, but perhaps more astonishing still, is accompanied by a race of numerous of viable majority world mission movement today. Mission activity, if you continue saying, is no longer predominantly and West-East activity. And Bruce Koch also reminds us that for 2005, the numbers of missionaries, non-Western missionaries, surpassed the number of Western missionaries. And in this very moment, it's almost 2 non-Western missionaries for 1 Western missionary in the mission force today. So the growth of the church in the global south, the growth of the number of missionaries from non-Western areas is transforming the way in which we understand the church, is transforming the way in which we understand mission, and need to transform the way in which we are working in mobilizing, training, and sending missionaries as well. So the new typology is because we are witnessing the emerge of a new leadership for the mission agencies, for the global church, and for the global circles that is emerging and coming from the global south. So what does the church looks like today? First of all, Philip Jenkins wrote in his famous book that by 2025, Africa and Latin America will vie for the title of the most Christian continent. As we can see what Todd Johnson and his research make for the year 2021, Africa is winning the race at this very moment. But who knows, because the Christians in Latin America continue growing so fast. Already by 1980, Spanish was the leading language in the world. And we can see that it is a very, very important, because it's transforming, because the language of Christianity is changing as well. Todd Johnson confirmed that what the scholars were announced, that the dominant language in Christianity is moving south, and as he said, by 1980, Spanish become the most speaking language. So in the way that we imagine today, God is hearing more prayer and more worship in Spanish than any other language in the world. But the problem that we are facing is that we continue perpetuating English as the lingua franca in our congresses, consultation, but especially in our training of missionaries and publication. We need to rethink, and we need to change that fact as well. Northern and Western scholars are no longer at the center of gravity of the church, say Todd Johnson. And we can say with him as well that the more experienced and founded sending structures that are recruiting today are no longer in the center of gravity. So it is a time for us to sit in the table, in a flat table, in order to discuss, in order to learn together what we are doing in order to make advance the global evangelization in the world. Less than 2% of Europeans actively not follow, only 2% of them actively follow Christ. So there is no hope to continue looking those waves of European missionaries that bless our countries, our continent, particularly in South America, in order to evangelize. Now, Europe is a new missionary field for us. But migration is another important element that we need to consider, especially because the majority of the 5 million of migrants in the world are Christian, 47% globally, but in the United States, 74% of them, the migrants who came to the United States, are Christian. So we have to say that when people move, they take their faith with them. So what's the proposal? What we have to do? What is the new way in which we need to act and mobilize, and especially to help to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ in this new era of the world, and it's complicated. So our proposal is that instead of refining our mobilization strategy, we need to help the church to recover the genetic code of a transformational and a reproductive church as Jesus Christ designed it. So in partnership with Latin American church, we in Avant are serving especially in 3 areas. The first one is to return to the mission of God and its central position in our reflection. We usually think in missions in plural, but we are forgetting about the mission in singular that need to be put in the central position in our reflection, not only as church, but also as a global mission. The second is to refine the perspective of the church as the core of the mission, a place that was replaced in some places by the mission agencies or mission entities, and now we need to bring back the church to the very core of mission of God. And in third place, to help them to recover discipleship as the measure of success of the church. And when we see that, we realize that in partnership with the Latin American church, Avant Ministries is connecting, facilitating, and nurturing a missional church network. We are inviting the pastors to sit with us in an accumulated of 24 hours of training in order them to recover the understanding about what is the genetic code of the church. What are those five crucial elements that make the church survive and advance in this complicated world? And we are looking the emerging of a new way of pastors with a new mindset, a mindset thinking in global evangelization. Let me share with you some of the ideas that what we are doing with that. First of all, we are restoring the church to the center of the MISSIO Day. And what we realize is that even when the passage of Matthew 28, 19, 20, the so-called the Great Commission mandate is probably one of the scriptures that we mention the most and we use the most in our consultation, in our meetings, is the most neglected part of the Bible. Because we have to realize that even when we know that by memory, we only pay a limited attention only for the two words, go therefore. And we usually think and teach that what the Great Commission mandate is only saying to send missionaries. That is a very reduced, it's a reduction of the understanding of the Great Commission mandate. So the base of our training is inviting the pastor and inviting you to rediscover the richness of the Great Commission mandate. Let me just to introduce some ideas in order to ignite that interest in your heart. The first of all, go therefore, say more than only send missionaries. It is a very reductive way to understand. What God therefore say is, first of all, is inviting to recover the pilgrim nature of the church. First of all, because the church is in a constant and is and must be in a constant motion to the end of the earth. The church was designed to keep moving. The church is not designed to stay in one place. As we can see in Acts chapter 8, when the church start growing, it's not a confirmation to build a biggest place, but it's a confirmation that it is time to move to the next place. The church in his pilgrimage is moving from Jerusalem to the New Jerusalem, but must first pass through all the nation. The church is a church at move. When the church stops, the church is neglecting its nature, is not represented, is pure nature, and is rejecting what is the purpose of the church. But also we have to say that we need to prepare every one of our members, not only who wants to go to the global mission, to go instead of just sending a few of them, because we are trying to reach the world only with a very reduced members of the church instead of transform the church in a church at move. So the first question that we are inviting the church and the church leader to respond is the church constantly on the move toward the ends of the earth, or rather has it stagnated, settled, and still seated in Jerusalem? The second phrase in the Great Commission mandate say, and make disciples. And for sure, this is the most neglected part of the Great Commission. because we are perpetuating the idea, the wrong idea that it is possible to be Christian but not be a disciple. And we need to put discipleship as the measure of success of the church, that place that was replaced by the worldly measure of success that the church already have in this very moment. So we need, first of all, put discipleship as the measure of success of the church, not the number of members, not even the square meters of our place, not even the resources of the number of zeros in our budget, but discipleship is the measure of success of the church. We need to recover that, and we realize that that is a big problem that we are facing, because due that we are neglecting in discipleship the product that the church is giving to the world is not ready to be transformed and trained and deployed as missionaries. And I know that every one of the mission agencies leaders agree with me today. The church measures effectiveness is by disciples that are reproducing themselves, not only in their Jerusalem, but also in their Judea, Samaria, but also to the end of the earth. The measure of success of the church is how many disciples the church is already reproducing here, there, and to the end of the earth as well. The another important element that we need to add is that we also need to measure the disciple in a better way. And we usually are measuring the discipleship by the amount of information and training that they receive. But the disciples need to be measured by the disciples that they already making around of them. It's the very same way in when someone say, I am a leader. My next question is, where are your followers? If you told me I am a disciple, my next question will be, where are the disciples that you are reproducing? So the next question that we are asking the church to respond is the church reproducing unconditional Christian on a regular base, or just converts who have changed their faithfulness from one church to another? The third phrase is of all nations, and probably is another misunderstanding part of the Great Commission mandate. Because when we hear of all nations, we usually think in those isolated places, and especially in those tribal groups that have no presence of Jesus Christ. For sure, to send missionaries there is very important, but all nations say more than that. We are neglecting in our process to evangelize the great cities when the 74% of the world is living today. We need to recover effectiveness in how we reach all levels of society as well as all nations. And first of all, we need to think, and we need to continue or recover our thinking that the world should be our parish. I usually say that the mission field starts in the front door of our church and end in the back door, but first of all have to cross all the nation and all the levels of society as well. The second element is that the God mission reach not only the nation, but also all the levels of society, as well as all the orders of life. So we need to prepare our members in order to be ready to make an influence in the places when they are, to become an influence in the different levels of society. But we are creating and we are perpetuating this dichotomy between the what is holy and what is not, and it's like in some time I think that it's look like that we have something like this readers that we have in the highways, that you have your ticket in your window, and when you cross in that reader, automatically recognize your car and take the payment for the toll. So I think in some time the church have something like that hidden in the door of the church. When the people go into the church, it sends a signal to the member to become a Christian. And he sing and pray and share the gospel with the people inside the building. But when he came back, this sent another signal, and that Christian disappeared and become a regular people outside of the church. We need to rethink about that. So we also, now we are learning that the most important thing that the church does happen when the church is not gathered together. And we need to recognize pastors and leaders that we have been expert in teaching the members of the church what to do inside the church. We become expert in recruit, in train, and prepare people to serve into the church, into the building, in the meeting that we have. But in this very moment, because of the pandemic, when most of the churches were closed, and in some parties still closed and remain closed today, we have to recognize that we fail in teaching them what the church do when the building doors are closed, when the lights are shut down, and the members of the church came out just waiting the next meeting. We need to change that way, and that's why the next question that we are asking the church to respond is: the church actively involved in bringing the gospel to all levels of society, as well as to all people of the world? Or rather, is this waiting for the sinners to come to the Sunday service? The next phrase in the Great Commission mandate, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded, is for sure the building place or the building block for the Bible schools and theological seminary. And we are building all the structure for training that is a great blessing for the church. But this phrase is teaching more than that. Is teaching more than only accumulate and develop the biblical teaching. We need to shift our focus from biblical training to a spiritual development of our members. And first of all, we need to prepare Christians for life, not only for biblical knowledge competition. We need to help them to transform their life in lives that make an impact 24 hours of the 7 days of the week in the places when they are, instead of only use that during those 2 hours that they are meeting in our building. That they are educated to look for answers in the Bible for everything that's happening around them. And I think in some way, with a very good faith, we are trying to produce and prepare those questions and teach them from the pulpit. And when the members of the church face a problem or something happened with them, we have a very strong counseling process in the church. But in this very moment that the members of the church are not have no access to those services, we realize that we are not educated them to get the answers in the Bible. We are not educated them to get a plan in order to face every one of the problems that they are facing. So what the other is that they have to have the ability to develop a biblical plan to face every situation in their life. So what we are asking is that we need to transform the product that we are giving to the world. And we need to make from every one of our members of the church disciples that become agents of the kingdom of God, wherever they are living, wherever they are studying, wherever they are working, in every one of the levels of society, in every one of the areas where they are serving. So the next question that we are asking the church to respond is the church teaching to keep the teaching of Jesus Christ, or just entertaining members so that they return to the next Sunday? And finally, the most neglected and probably the most the phrase that most of the Christians love is "I am with you always." But we only see the promise, but not the commitment. And I am with you always, say more than only that, that the promise that the Lord will be with us. We need to resume seriously in the integrity of the church, its leadership, and its members. If the Lord is with us all the time, everywhere, when we are, is with a purpose that the church fulfill the Great Commission, but with the purpose that we become in integrity in everything of the things that we are. The most important thing that the church has to be and to do and to fulfill the Great Commission is the presence of Jesus Christ. As we can read in Matthew 18:20, the most important and the powerful force in the church to become a church, a reproductive and an influential church, is the presence of Jesus Christ. Mission is done with him, by him, and for him. We need to recover Jesus Christ to the center of our mission instead of a structure, instead of our methodology, instead of our resources. Jesus Christ is the center of the mission because it's with him. He promised to be with us. It's by him because he gave us all the resources that we need, and is made for him because he said, in the very way that the Lord sent me, I send you too. And everything they do must fulfill the expectation of Jesus Christ and align to the sense of mission. So we need to fulfill the expectation of Jesus Christ, not only in our 2 hours in the meeting, but also in the rest of our day. So the last question that we are asking the church to respond: is the church honoring the presence of Christ in its midst, living lives of integrity, manifesting integrity in fulfilling its mission and causing amazement in the world? Or are we sterile, innocuous, and without impact in our society and in the world? In conclusion, I can say that in order to see a significant advance of the Latin American and the global church toward the unreached, those 5 important questions need to be answered by the church everywhere. May the Lord use this in your life and in your ministry as well. Matthew, are we ready for the question and answer time? No, I cannot hear you.
Now you can hear me, can you?
Yes.
Great. As I expected, it was really rich. I had the opportunity to look through the slides the last couple of days and do some preparation with you. And I'm going to go back in. I was very encouraged, and I appreciate that you didn't approach this in a formulaic, follow these things and you're going to have instant mobilization. I appreciate that you went back to the scripture, the foundation, because that's really our biggest issue, isn't it? It's an issue of the heart. And so I just want to tell you, I really appreciate those things. I'm going to ask David Jackett, who's our Director of Operations and Mobilization, to join us as well, if you're comfortable doing that, David. There you are. And I want to remind everyone at this point that this is your opportunity to enter into the conversation with David. And so on the right-hand side of your screen in the question and answer panel, go ahead and type in your questions, and then David will address those and shoot them over to David Ruiz, and I will as well. So David, you want to pick a couple of those?
Yeah, I echo Matthew. Great job, David. Really appreciated that. The first question we have is from Leslie. She is addressing the challenges that you addressed early on in the presentation. She said, are these challenges for the church specific to the white evangelical church?
I think those are challenges for the global church, because the church now it's a spread out. As I mentioned, the church is diverse and it is spread out in a very, very much way. And I think that the same problem and the same challenges that I mentioned is facing in the global north as well in the global south, between the white and the colored people. And I think that we need to recover the sense of the unity of the church. In the past, We can say we can think in the global north as the developed church and the global south as undeveloped church. But in this very moment, we need to join hands in order to learn together how to face those global challenges.
Yeah, that's really, really good. Mariah asks, when you're talking about encouraging a church to prepare every member to be a church on the move, what does that look like practically?
Well, I think that what we are looking is that when we think in what is the definition of a disciple, we need to go back to the Bible, and especially in Matthew 16:24. And I can summarize in three main elements. Disciples of the church is what the Lord wants him to be. His character is transformed. Second, the disciples of Jesus Christ is the one who do what his Lord wants him to do. So he's completely obedient to the word of God. And third, the disciple of the church is someone that is ready to go wherever the Lord is sending. If we see a Christian with those three characteristics, they are doing influence in the neighborhood of the church, in the places when they are living, in the area when they are working, or in the countries where they are moved because migration or work or wherever, or the places when they are deployed, they are missionaries. We are preparing the same product that is serving here, there, and to the end of the earth.
Yeah, that's really good. Thank you. Let's see. Jose asks, hey, David, I loved your emphasis on Jesus and on the mission of God. What do you think might be the greatest opportunity and the greatest challenge for the Latino church in the U.S. in missions?
Well,
Big one.
I think that was the question that I was waiting, because I know that that the hidden giant of the mission in the North America is the Latino church. Because what I am experiencing in Latin America is the Latino church is able to do great things with lack of resources. So if we can imagine that those elements that is handicap the mission in Latin America, that now in North America you have access to them. The Latin American church in United States is one of the most powerful strategy. I think, and we are working on that so hard in order to approach to Latin American church. But two things need to happen. First of all, the North American mission structure need to correct the blind spot that they have. And the Latin American church need to be humble in order to recognize that they are part of the church in North America. They are not visitors, they are not migrants, they are part in equal level with the church in North America. If both elements are corrected, I think that we are close to awake that giant and see a great advance in the global mission from North America.
Yeah, wow, that was really good. David asks, how can we work with churches in Latin America that we already partner with to help them prepare their people to go?
Well, first of all, invite them to be part of this missional church network. I think what we are doing is sitting together with the pastor and help them at their speed in order to understand this element, to respond those questions that we mentioned. Because I think what I experienced very many times in Latin America is not at easy to sit together with the leaders of the church for a couple of hours, offering them to be part of the global mission. They need to rethink the church. Then they need to realize that they are part of the process and not only invited to them. And they need to buy the commitment from the Bible in order to go ahead. And that is a very important element. I think one of the characteristics of the Latino church in the global in Latin America, but also in North America, is the respect for the Bible. If we can prove that the Bible says that, we have a committed church to do that.
Yeah. So here's another one from, I think it's Aaron. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. How is mobilizing the Latino church different from mobilizing from Western churches? Also, how are the challenges faced by Latinos different from Westerners?
Well, I think that that the way in which we understand what we need to do mission is completely different. Starting by the resources, I think in the global north is perpetuating the idea, or it's affected by the idea that if we have the plan, if we have the right leader, and if we have the resources, the project is possible to do. It doesn't work in Latin America. First of all, because we have a lot of plans and we have a lot of leaders, but we have lack of resources as well. In Latin America, we are moving more by vision, by the passion and the life commitment. So we need to use a different language to mobilize in North America and mobilize in Latin America. And about the challenges that we are facing, I think the first challenge is what I was mentioned about perpetuating English as the lingua franca. We need to open our minds because English is reducing the opportunities for this incredible amount of opportunities of Latinos going to mission for only one or two opportunities when there are teams that speak English. We need to rethink. Also, it's not as easy only to translate things into Spanish. We need to think that if the Spanish is the most spoken language in Christianity, every one of the mission agencies in North America need to have bilingual people in their top position in order to not only to speak Spanish, but understand the heart of the Latin American and the Spanish speakers.
Yeah, that's really good. Sam asks, how do we get Hispanic missionaries funded who want to work with traditional parachurch missions agencies?
That is a real challenge, and honestly, I have no answer yet, because we as Avant are facing the same problem. Because and let me open my heart in that when we have a candidate that is applying in Avant, for instance, and he came to the Latin American church, the mind of the pastor say, why, if he's applying in a North American mission agencies, why don't the North American is paying his bill or his support? And when he came to the North American church in order to raise funds to go in Avant, for example, the North American pastor think, why, if the church in the global south is growing, why they don't pay their support? So we are in the middle of that vacuum in this moment that we need to know how to break it. I don't know yet, but we need to pray and think about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's a support raising obviously is a struggle for many people, if not all, but it's definitely a conversation as we've had this mobilizing people of color. That's definitely been something that's come up for the minority church, raising support. What does that look like? The challenges. Maybe there's something there. Maybe there's some further discussion to dive into. Let's see. Moses says, what I hear, it's a call to discipleship and it being a central focus. I agree. With that said, with the concept of when everything is missions, is there a danger in developing a mindset of everything is discipleship, or are there things we should be mindful of?
I think that I have to say that it's a big difference between say that every one of the Christian must to be a disciple, because it's a biblical emphasis in Acts 11:26 to say that every Christian is a missionary. It's completely different. We have to be clear that missionary is someone that is called by the Lord to close a geographical barrier or a language barrier or a ethnic barrier or cultural, or a combination of them, in order to share the gospel in places where the gospel is not available. That is a missionary. all of the rest of the members of the church are disciples that need to be agents of the kingdom of God wherever they are. But it's completely different what I am saying. And I think that the way to correct that misunderstanding, because I completely agree with Neil when he say that if we say that everyone is missionary, nobody is missionary, and it's true. So we have to be careful. What we are saying is that we need to recover and raise the level of the product that the church is producing. And we need to produce disciples, because the problem that we are facing as mission agencies and mission structure and mission movement is when we approach to those people, to those members who came and wants to be missionaries, and we explore with them and try to see about their Christian experience. We need to ask them to go back to the Sunday school in order to learn the basic of discipleship. So that is a very handicap for the mission today. But I want thank you for that question, because give us the opportunity to clarify that. And David, I just want to add something for the first question that I consider is very important. I think the model that we are following in the mission networks, the missional church network, is that if we empower the church and if we teach the church in this direction, we are going to help to develop the capacity in the church, not only to recruit, not only to train, but also to support their own missionaries. So that is something that I missed in the first in the previous answer.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So here is a really practical question in regards to mobilizing people here. How do you overcome the parents' pushback from Hispanic Christians in the U.S. sending their kids to the nation and not thinking only in regards to the American dream?
Sorry, I needed some clarification about the question. Sorry for that.
Yeah, so I think what they're saying is when you have Latinos in America that want to go to the nations, oftentimes there's pushback from the parents who maybe only think in regards to the American dream.
Yeah, and now I understand, and I think it's a crucial and very painful reality. And I think is the reason is because that this dichotomy that we have, that we think that that the spiritual thing are only happen inside the church, but those parents never understand that if we prepare our son and daughters, our children in something, we need to prepare them for life, but also prepare them for be an agents of the kingdom of God. So they are not denying the American dream. They are embracing the dream of Jesus Christ to see the gospel spread out all over the nation. So we need to think as well in how we teach in the church about what successful is all about. Because I think in this moment when the church is adopting this word, the measure of success, we are presenting success as a knowledge, or success as fame, or success as access to economical resources, instead of presenting success in the way of Jesus Christ, to be humble, to be servant, and be committed with the mission of God.
Yeah. So this is another great question. The Latin American church in the United States is not monocultural. Is there anything we should be mindful of as we work to mobilize that church, and what barriers must we overcome?
Well, that is a good question, because it's a very good reality. And if you can see the churches I can say that the Latin American churches that are growing so fast and steady in United States are not necessarily the traditional white Latin Americans like me. There are Indian groups, a church that is growing so fast and spread out all over North America. So the Latin American church in North America is multicultural and have a multiple languages to approach. So we have to approach the Latin American church in the very way that we are approaching the global church. We need to continue growing in our understanding about that the church is multicultural, is multilinguistic, and especially multicentric in order to transform our ways to approach the church and be sensitive to those places.
Yeah, thank you. So we're going to wrap up here. There's a lot of great questions that are still, man, just the questions keep coming in, and there's just so many. But I want to close with this, David. You've mentioned this a few times, and multiple people have asked. Can you share a little bit more about this missional church network and maybe how people can connect with that as a resource?
Thank you very much. Well, we with Avant are mobilizing Latin America, and we created this meeting point. It's not an organization, it's not a denomination. It's just a place where we are inviting church leaders and especially pastors to become part of that. The way to access to that is if we send us an email to the following email. I don't know if I can type in the chat.
Yes, you can.
And you pronounce, David, because sometimes my pronunciation for those is very difficult. But if you send us an email to a note to that email, we can send you the full information. But we have a web page you can put in your browser, redmissional.org, and you reach the place when you can register. And what we are doing is, first of all, when you register in our missional church network, we commit for the next 52 weeks that you will be receiving a weekly packet with a video and training and Sunday school material and very many material for that week for you to share about what missions and missionary is and means. And secondly, we invite you to be part of this accumulated training of 24 hours, inviting pastors to share with other pastors and learn together about that. And thirdly, we are inviting the pastor to sit together and think in terms of cooperation. How can we join hands as pastors that are growing in our capacity to become missional church, to send together missionaries and to solve the problem of lack of resources that we have. So please, redmissional, www.redmissional.org, and or send us an email to red@avmi.org. That's good enough for us to reach you and give you information. You can write in English, no problem at all.
Yeah, I put the website and the email address are both in the chat for everyone. And for those of you that we didn't get to your questions, we are going to copy those down. I'm going to send those to David, and just as he is able, we'll try to connect with you on those. I also want to let you guys know we've received so much great feedback on this ongoing Mobilizing People of Color series. In regards to the Latin American church, this is conversation of one of many, we hope. So we want to continue this conversation. We're so thankful for you, David, for being our first one to really lay the groundwork. So many great questions. What I would encourage everyone to do is when you receive the survey, when you log off this webinar, maybe put some practical things or things that you would like to see discussed in the next Mobilizing People of Color webinar, or ideas for other webinars that you may have. That's where we get probably 80% of our webinar ideas are from you. What do you want to hear about and learn more about? We're here to serve you. So with that, I'm going to say goodbye, and we are so thankful that you were able to attend. Make sure you check out 1615.org/events for the upcoming webinars. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much.
David, great job, David Ruiz. Thank you, and great conversation facilitation, David Jacket. Thank you, folks.
Great opportunity. I really appreciate that. I value very much.
Yeah, that was great, David. Thank you so much.